At 69. I'm Steve Williams on AM 560, The Answer.
63 at O'Hare. Next news 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. We've been talking about the closing arguments of the respective sides and their allies this morning, and we haven't gotten to this one yet, but this certainly takes the prize for the most unhinged of the closing arguments, and that's really something to say in these times. The end times close, if you will. Listen very closely, and of course it begins with four people sitting around a makeshift fire in a bombed-out city. It's like a scene from, a Cormac McCarthy novel, the, dystopian end times. Take a listen.
We weren't always like this. We had a beautiful life. The best parties. The most beautiful friends. We thought it was just another election. So a lot of us didn't vote. Why bother? Everyone knew the system was rigged. Many of us even voted for them. I know it sounds crazy now, but we didn't like Democrats back then. We were angry about the vaccine mandates and how they handled the war in Gaza and the way they wanted to censor free speech on the internet.
They want unquestioned obedience.
So what did we end up doing? We voted for the guys who openly said they wanted to imprison dissenters and use the military against their political opponents. So yeah, we were wrong on that. Big time. When Trump got sick and died, Vance was 39 years old when he became president. 30 years later, he's still president today. And with the Supreme Court on his side, they gave him dictatorial powers. They took away women's reproductive rights, outlawed contraception, and removed the minimum wage. Then we had repression of dissent, AI surveillance of everything we did or said on a level we couldn't imagine. The government under Vance, Peter Thiel, and Elon Musk set up concentration camps for illegal immigrants, then legal immigrants, then even homeless people. They finally admitted climate change was real, but it was too late. Florida sank into the Gulf and the West burned, and cities across the country became uninsurable, then uninhabitable. Musk and Thiel poured all of our resources into artificial intelligence so they and their friends could become immortal. I don't know what happened to them, but I know what happened to us.
I mean, oh boy, the mind virus runs deep in some, huh? That's fun.
Apocalyptic, dear Lord.
Back here on planet Earth,
Yes,
why don't we
come back
talk?
home?
Why don't we talk about battleground states like Nevada, which, by the way, going into Election Day, it appears, at least these were the numbers I saw reported as of Saturday, that Republicans have about a 50,000 vote advantage. Now, this is just over Democrats. The independents, the other, doesn't contemplate what the splits are because you're just looking about, the profile of the voter, so you don't know the votes, of course. But the early vote, much improved over previous cycles in Nevada for Republicans, plus almost 50,000, it looks like. So all else being equal, based on the underlying numbers that we do know of Republicans and Democrats likely to vote for their nominee, in addition to how independents may be breaking from polling, looking at the crosstabs, it looks like Republicans are in a fairly strong position going into Election Day. In Nevada now, Nevada's been fool's gold the last couple cycles for Republicans. So the question is, will that be different tomorrow? Victor Joecks is a columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He joins us now. Victor, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you guys.
So the early vote totals that I was just describing, how much would you read into that in terms of assessing the GOP prospects, Trump and Sam Brown for that matter?
Well, for Trump, I'd read into it quite a lot. I mean, you kind of hit on it. If you look 4 years ago, Democrats were ahead around 45,000 votes at this point. And today Republicans are ahead around 43,000 votes.
43,
so
okay.
You're looking at a 93,000 or 90,000-ish, give or take, vote swing in a state that Biden won by 34,000 votes. So, I mean, you just look at that, and that would be enough if everything holds. Obviously, you don't know, just like you said, all the caveats, right? You don't know how people are actually voting. You don't know what the independents are going to do. But just from a raw number standpoint, it looks incredible for Trump. And then if you step back and you look historically at Nevada elections, it's a little hard because 4 years ago they instituted all mail ballots along with early voting, along with in-person voting. But in every cycle, Democrats jump out to a big voter lead, especially here in Clark County where Las Vegas is, where about 70% of the state resides. And it's a lean Democrat county. And they just, in the first few days of early voting, they just jump to a big lead. And basically what you kind of track for the 2 weeks of early voting is, are Republicans closing the gap? Is the gap small enough going into Election Day that if Republicans, who historically have always outperformed Democrats on Election Day, is it close enough for Republicans to make up the gap? And this year there's no gap. Republicans have the lead. And so I think that bodes very, very well for Trump. Down ballot, I think it's going to be a little tighter. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago about the U.S. Senate candidate out here, the Republican Sam Brown running against the Democrat Jackie Rosen, I would have said Brown is toast. He doesn't have a chance. He's, polling-wise, he's consistently somewhere between 5 to 7 or even double digits points behind Rosen. But these numbers are so good, I think that race is a toss-up. I think that race is going to be very close. And Sam Brown has momentum and a real chance to win this seat.
What do you attribute the improved prospects for Trump this go-around to on the ground there? I mean, is it strictly like we see everywhere else, that the top issues of inflation and immigration, or is there some unique dynamic in Nevada and Vegas?
Actually, I think it's different. I think it's actually the dynamic that's been reported, which is that Harris has had trouble motivating young voters, black voters, Hispanic voters. And if you look at Las Vegas, guess what we have? We will have a lot of young black and Hispanic voters. And so if Harris was truly struggling to motivate them, that you would see it right here in Las Vegas. And that's actually what you do see. People always say, well, you can't read too much into early voting because you don't know if the people are just, cannibalizing their Election Day vote. Well, you can look at Nevada, you can look at the historical data, and it's not that Republicans have dramatically outvoted where they were 4 years ago. But what has happened is that Democrats have fallen off significantly from where they were 4 years ago. I mean, if you look compared to 4 years ago, Republicans are just a tiniest bit ahead of where they were 4 years ago, something like 1% of voters. But Democrats are down, almost 80,000 voters out of 450,000 that voted 4 years ago. Now only 361,000 have voted.
Well, what do you think what's their main issue? Is it immigration? Is it inflation? I mean, what are you hearing from people?
The economy, definitely. I mean, Las Vegas has been hit hard by all of the inflation-producing policies that have hurt families around the country. But I mean, home prices here have just exploded, and we were always the cheap place, right? This is where Californians came to be able to afford to live, and now and maybe this sounds like a deal for you guys in Chicago, but the median home price is something like $450,000, which is just absurd. It should be like $200,000. And so I think, and then the price of groceries, the price of gas, that's all of that's happened, and all of it's been magnified in Las Vegas, in Nevada. And I think that's why people just aren't motivated. That's why Democrats just aren't motivated to get out there for Kamala.
Well, now we had this wrinkle thrown election way in Nevada by the Nevada Supreme Court last week when they upheld the validity of late ballots without postmarks. The law says mail votes postmarked by Election Day are still good if they arrive 4 days later. But ballots delivered within 3 days are deemed to have been mailed on time, even if there is no postmark. So number one, assess that decision, but then two, with the sort of, and particularly the Trump campaign's sort of response to that wrinkle.
Well, the decision's terrible. I mean, what the law says is that if the postmark can't be determined and it's received within 3 days of Election Day, it's supposed to be deemed as having been mailed on time. And then what the law is implying is, there's a smudge. They got water damage. And the implication, though, is that there is a postmark. And so what the Supreme Court said is, I know the law said there's supposed to be a postmark, but if there is no postmark, it's interesting because after the primary, I actually did a records request asking how many of these ballots there were in the primary, and there were 24 ballots received in Clark County, which is the main county, with no postmark. And so obviously turnout for election, for the general election is going to be much bigger. But if you see something more than a couple hundred ballots like this, then it's deeply suspicious,
right?
Given what we saw in the primary. And so as tight as I think it's going to be, anyway. The decision's terrible. I'm hopeful that the on the ground effects are not that substantial. I mean, if you see something like 2,000 ballots come in without postmarks, I mean that would be deeply suspicious. But I mean, hopefully it's 100, 150.
Is there anything, Vegas in particular, big union town, and of course Trump made big news when he was out there and he announced that he would propose no taxes on overtime wages, to which Kamala quickly echoed, or tips, right? But is that something that was particularly impactful, or does it just all fall in the bucket of things were better under Trump, I think they'll be better under Trump again, and that's the delta?
Well, I think that policy was very much directed at hotel workers in Nevada. I mean, the culinary union represents them as very powerful, very strong Democrat group. When Trump proposed it, he kind of poo-pooed it. And then you see Kamala come out, and I think that was actually her first official policy, that she put out on the campaign trail, was copying Trump's no tax on tips, which I think tells you just how powerful it was, because it's a very tangible thing, right? It's not just, the prices are high and I'm going to lower the prices. It's, hey, look at this, segment of your paycheck, and I'm going to stop taxing you on it. And whether or not that's a huge amount of money, what it tells those people, again, generally Democrat voters, large share of those people are minority voters. What Trump is telling them is, I see you, right? I know that you're having a hard time, and I am going to do something specifically directed at you. And that's a powerful message. And I think it was so powerful that Harris felt like she had to copy it. And the culinary union, of course, praised her when she came out in support of it, which I think, just tells you the politics of it.
Chefs, waitresses, blackjack dealers, croupiers of the world unite in Vegas. Victor Joecks, columnist for the Las Vegas Review-Journal. Victor, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper. Hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.